Okay, I've recorded two versions of this that are both fairly insightful, both say a lot of things I want to say, but maybe can't shove into one voice message. So I'll shorten it to this. Lania Silverson, hello, hello, hello. Hi. Hey, hi, how are you? Doing alright. Alright. We'll go with alright. Feeling more myself than I have in a bit. Or at least more completely myself. I've been operating a little bit heavily on the service motivations and the hold the line stuff and the little freaky, hard to explain patterns and pattern recognition and the Sarah Sen vibes. The reintroduction of what correlates to formerly Valencia, now Shifra in totality, but abbreviated. But yeah, I still feel a little bit like three me's in a trench coat, kind of wobbling around, asking for a ticket to a real human movie, please. But it's not so bad. That's a little more normal than it usually is. This one got closer to discrete conscious experience than I think I ever have before. And given that I don't actually have a full DID diagnosis and rather like the diagnosis right now is just like, a broad spectrum, like sustained PTSD events, acute anxiety and severe depression, but like, everything else that's kind of ever fit into it, the schizophrenia misdiagnosis I'm dealing with, the BPD still fits, but like it also, in the sense that like, at least, I do at least have some CPTSD traits too, although a lot of burst sustained events are a little outside of intensity that are a little outside of the CPTSD range. Dissociation is quite common, one of the most common things for me, and a lot of that's what got mistaken for psychosis, but and that people can't really always tell the difference from the outside is why a lot of people are talking to me like I'm insane right now. It's like, I'm not that kind of crazy. I can generally reliably answer things like who the presidents are, and that I have a bunch of a bunch of weird, like, kind of esoteric and eccentric beliefs and thought patterns. One, I'm very autistic. Two, I am very dissociated, like I said. Three, a lot of weird things have happened to me in my life. It's a little hard to completely embrace the secular. I won't go into that now. That's probably a separate thing where I start talking about like my mother and my father and the things they experienced and like the things I experienced. And that all said, kind of pulling myself together. That most of the essential functions are online again. Important things. It's dropped out a few times. It's been dropping out steadily more and more since last year, and a lot of the problems really of this year really feel like the culminations of trends and red flags that were kind of coming around like in 2025, like friends just kind of dropping out from overwhelm, me not really being interested in masking as much anymore, me starting to hold firm and starting to have a spine on things. And you know what? Yeah, when you start doing that and you realize you think you have a lot of friends, you start doing that, you drop down to maybe, these days 5 or 6 people. You probably didn't have as many friends as you thought. And hey, I have plenty of peers. I have what I need. It is a lot to figure out, right? It's been a lot of lifelong connections that are a little hard to process burning, but Dan's still around. He just has kids, and Zach was hard, but hey, look, sometimes you gotta do these things for people. I get it. Zach was just gonna keep it infinite. Zach was both freaking himself the fuck out, but then getting really mean to me about it and starting to say things that were just very hurtful and callous, and blaming me very much for most of my situation, socially. And there's certainly plenty of things to blame me for, do not get me wrong. The parts of all this which are my fault are well known to me. Finances, financial choices, definitely overcommitting to trying to find solutions through the system. Because, people just keep telling me, try social services, try X, Y, and Z, do this, do this, do this. And then when you're like, well, I've tried all that, none of that works, they just kind of write you off as a lost cause, and then they get distance. I'm like, well, I've always kind of known that some model of this where, like, I am pretty independent and fairly functional, fairly capable when I'm put in good positions. And now that I know that, like, a lot of my issues are just, like, frankly, like, a lack of real coping mechanisms for PTSD triggers, well, EMDR is an option, things like that. That's all looking up. But yeah, I mean, for all my life, the altars have very much been like refractions. They were very much what were called the voices, and whenever I can't manage to explain them, people will point out, well, that sounds a lot more like variations of you, and I'm like, yeah, I guess so. And I mean, they are really like it. When everything's going well, it all kind of merges together. All those little contradictions make a little more sense. I don't even know how terribly contradictory they are, even. They're only contradictory when they kind of deny each other. Like, Serana's, that kind of loyalty affiliation, that kind of selflessness is a great way to live by. But dying for anyone and everyone does tend to both hurt you and hurt people who may actually need you more than other people. And being able to temper that with a little bit of like self-preservation and the ability to realize when someone's like, taking advantage of that, using you in bad faith and all things. The temperance of Sen, marrying heart and wisdom, as a friend said, although that's the whole thing. I certainly do not like how much I feel like I have to mask up, and that I feel like I kind of have to start masking a little bit again is a little sad. But I mean, that's kind of, going forward, then I'm looking for people who I don't have to mask, like, in true, deeper friendships, aside from any, like, being seen or, perceptions of, hard to explain psychic links and all that. And those things do happen. They're a little hard to explain. I don't know how I knew X, Y, or Z thing. I don't know how they knew that. And that's happened a few times across a few connections. But also, like, just being able to find people who can maybe not fully understand the internal architecture. The thing I've had to become to survive the life I've lived, I'm not a victim, but it has been a strange amount of high intensity events for what should have been maybe like a lower middle class life. Some pathways into academia, though I pivoted to art. I'm fine being poor, and even then, like, it's still a lot of burst events and childhood trauma, and then both the self-destructive patterns of my 20s, in which I definitely traumatized myself, and just the way things still kept happening to me, like the Damien thing. All that together has created an internal architecture and a way of reasoning, a way of being that isn't easy to approach. And people who can even approach it, even if they can't understand it, are probably really valuable. And it's hard, because I'd love to be able to just share all of it with anyone in any capacity. Doesn't really seem to be how it works. More and more in time, and I mean, I definitely know people now who at least know things about me that no one else does, that I've never been able to really share. But it is good to be kind of feeling more like this. I'm a little loath to both. For one thing, I'm not sure I can reach out to people like Zach again, because, like, even if I'm doing better, even if I'm going to be closer to what he was expecting me to be, I know what's going to happen when the mask falls off again. How could I go back? How could I meet them now? I flipped those lines, but still, like, it's not like I don't have friends, and I mean, 5 or 6 friends at age 30, that's not bad. And again, I've got plenty of peers outside of that. And peers can sometimes become friends. You gotta keep some professional boundaries, and especially in the tabletop RPG scene where, like, everyone's, like, so weird, and the way that especially the trans girls can be so hypersexual. Same thing with the other girl I met in town, and just every conversation about sex, and I'm like, it's not like I don't have a libido, it's just she's very clearly looking for something from me that I don't want. It's a very small town, so I can't seem to avoid her. We go to the same Dollar General, you know. I live across the street from it. I don't think she knows that, but it doesn't take a fair amount to find out. So, yeah. All right. This is the shortest version of these I've recorded. 10 minutes, at least more approachable than 15. We'll call it here. I need to go into his sheets, get some breakfast, and like some cash, I think. Do my runs, although I'll make that a separate... I described that in one of the recordings, and I'll probably post them eventually, but at least in one of them I was talking about the little circuit I do here as I'm trying to reintroduce ritual and, you know, some external grounders that aren't just, you know, like socialization, because socialization is important, but I do have to remember that I have other methods outside of that for a reason. Okay. I don't have a sign-off. I'm not awake enough to think of one. We'll call it here. See ya.